Well, we are thankful for another day of life. If you're happy to be alive, just put your hands together for just being able to breathe today and being alive. Thank you to all who invited me to be a part of this special occasion and to be able to share today. As we think about this whole idea of mental health and spiritual connection, it's only right that I share my story on how it connected for me. I started pastoring 8 years ago, and 2 years into my pastorate, I wanted to quit. It was simply for personal reasons, more so on the strength of struggling with losing family members or church members. I'm an activist and community organizer, and losing young people to gun violence, losing my own friends to gun violence, and dealing with the emotional stress of being a pastor, being a leader, while struggling with your own difficulties. 2 years, 3 years in, wanting to quit. My wife and I, we lost a child, which was very painful. And then one Sunday, as I was ministering and we were having service and service was over, I'll never forget a young man by the name of Adam. Adam was coming to our church and growing. And one Sunday after he had left our church, 5 minutes down the road, he was shot and killed. I began to think in my mind why I felt the way that I felt on wanting to quit when I've never really quit before in my life. I've always been a survivor, always been an overcomer. But I began to sleep a lot. I began to eat a lot. I began to become in a state that I did not know how to explain. Getting up every Sunday to go preach while not wanting to live myself. Getting up every day to still serve my community when I did not know how to take care of myself. The struggle became one morning when I woke up and I thought about suicide. But I looked in the mirror and I did not know how to explain the condition in which I was in. And so what came to mind is what I said in the mirror. And I said, God, I'm mentally mangled. Mentally mangled, meaning that my mind is all over the place, my emotions are all over the place, and I don't know what to call this. And so as I began to share with one of my friends what was going on, the suggestion came that you should go to therapy. Now, I started to go to therapy, but I had a conflict, and if you work in the medical field or in behavioral health, this may help you help those who come to you for help. And that was this. That as I was talking to my therapist and I was sharing all of the pain that I was going through, the question became for me, am I still a man of faith? Because in the church, particularly the church that I grew up in, you're taught to pray all of your problems away. You're taught to serve your problems away. You're taught that God will bring you out of what you are in. And so the challenge became, the conviction became, as I'm going to therapy, am I still a man of God? Am I still a man of faith? And I began to struggle with that because is God really real in my life? Is the power of God really real in my life? Does it exist? And this is what I received as a revelation that helped me navigate this journey called faith and mental health. And that is this, that therapy does not replace theology. Theology, what you believe about God, does not replace therapy. And that became something for me to hold on to because now my conviction was lifted. But then I had another journey to go on, which is now what I believe about my faith and what I believe about God. Is it in the scriptures? Is it in my spiritual journey? Is it in my walk? Is it okay to be affected by my mental health, but still believe in the God that I believe in? And so what I did was, as I began to pray and continue to go to therapy, I began to build a relationship with my therapist to help that therapist understand that when I say I'm talking to God, that doesn't mean I'm crazy. When they say that I need God in my life, it doesn't mean that I'm becoming self-reliant on myself without taking the steps and tools that you're giving me. When I say hallelujah, that's not a hallucination to make you think that something is wrong with me. It is an interesting fact in my life that I realized that just as much as I needed a therapist, I also needed God. Now, you might be asking, where did you get this revelation from? And not only through my therapist and not only through working with other behavioral health specialists, my father said something very clear to me one day, which is if you can name it, then you can start to cure it. And so when I looked into the scriptures, I'll give a short story of an example of how faith and mental health connect. There's a story of Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane. And what happens here is that Jesus is making his final plea to not have to take on the responsibility of his calling. And the weight of that puts him in a garden where he begins to cry and have a mental health breakdown. Yes, we're talking about Jesus Christ, the example that many of us follow. But it doesn't matter your faith. At any point of our lives, someone that we have looked up to that gives us spiritual guidance has come to a place where they've had an emotional and mental health breakdown. While Jesus the Christ is in this Garden of Gethsemane, he takes his friends with him, which is interesting because it shows us that on our mental health journey, we all need somebody to go with us. So he takes his disciples with him and he says, let's go pray, which is important for behavioral health specialists to understand that people of faith need prayer. They need your tools, they need your resources, but they also need time to be able to meditate and pray and talk to their higher power. So now this becomes interesting dynamic because he takes his friends. You need people on your journey. He talks to God. That's prayer, meditation, or whatever you do to calm your spirit. But then something interesting happens. And in the scripture, it talks about how the disciples fall asleep on Jesus. Now, I'm not preaching to you, but I'm just giving you this story because it's really a life lesson that really impacts us all. I need you on my journey, but yet you have fallen asleep on this journey. And we begin to judge people or we get upset at people because they're not responding to our pain the way that we think they should. But can I help you? There's a dual dynamic here because not only is Jesus having a mental health breakdown, an emotional breakdown, but yet so are the disciples. How do I know this to be true? They are both dealing with the same thing, but they are processing it differently. They're mentally mangled. They're challenged by what they're going through, but they're processing it differently. And how do I know this? Well, Jesus is about to lose his life. The disciples are about to lose Jesus. They're both in a state of loss. I wonder in this room, how many of us have lost a loved one or something very dear to us? And we've been judged based upon how we reacted to that pain. And this, my brothers and sisters, is why when people are mentally mangled, we have to extend a certain level of grace and understanding because we all can go through the same thing, but we process it differently. We continue on this story, and the next thing that's fascinating to me is the location of where this hall takes place. It takes place in a garden. And I think about this because in my mental health journey, as I think and reflect on how faith and mental health have connected for me, it has come down to a place of understanding that sometimes your pain will turn into purpose. And when I look at how this story impacts my life, I'm grateful for the fact that it's the illustration of the garden. Because when we go through our mental health journey and when we go through our mental health crisis, it is nothing to be ashamed of because it is even in our pain where we can see our own personal growth. It is in the garden where things die and things are planted to even grow. But it is in this garden where you see a group of people who are broken and who are hurting and who feel like they are in despair. And how does this connect to the medical world, and how does this connect to faith and therapy? Well, if you continue to read the story, specifically in the book of Luke, it says these words, that God sent an angel to strengthen him. Watch this, to strengthen him, which would suggest, because the wording is clear, it doesn't say that he takes the pain away or that the pain no longer exists. But it does say that there is strength. The revelation for me is this, is that as much as I believe in God and I love my relationship spiritually, with God the Creator. It said that the angel came and strengthened him, and I liken that to God creating therapists, behavioral health specialists, social workers, case managers, who are all a gift from God to help us navigate our mental health journey. Sometimes, don't mean to upset you, your pastor cannot help you, your spiritual leader cannot help you because they are not equipped to help you. But if we take advantage of this gift of behavioral health specialists who are skilled, educated, and knowledgeable about helping us navigate our mental health journey, we can move from being mentally mangled to being mentally motivated and mentally healed. Lastly, let me say this, that out of this pain and purpose, as a faith leader, I began to create Mentally Mangled as a conference for pastors, lay leaders, and faith leaders who were struggling but still serving, who were dealing with emotional issues but were still serving the masses. That conference started 5 years ago, and 5 years later, Mentally Mangled has morphed into now what we do is not just a conference, but also we train behavioral health specialists as well as churches and institutions of faith to establish mental health ministries within their churches, within their communities. And this has become a movement that has been a connection not only with hospitals and behavioral health specialists, but it has empowered the faith leader to know that it's okay for them not to have all the answers, for them to know that they need healing as well, because we can't serve anybody when we're broken in the garden and we're crying and we're breaking down. We too must be mentally strong, but we also need to acknowledge when we're mentally weak. In conclusion, I live by this motto, which is the name of our organization. It's not a moment, it's a movement. And what does that mean? It means simply this, that the work we do today is for generations we may never see. And why do I bring that up? Because when we talk about the health of men in our community, it is important that we understand that yes, there may be difficulty in explaining what we're going through, the challenges or the trauma that we have lived through. But it is also okay to acknowledge that you are mentally mangled, confused, in a place where you cannot quite exactly pinpoint or name what it is you're feeling or what you're going through. You as a man might be saying, hey, I'm relying on God, the Creator, to help me through this. My brothers, my sisters that are in here today, just like you need God, you also need therapy to guide you through your mental health journey. And it does not make you weak, it makes you wise. Let me say that again. Acknowledging that you need mental health help on this journey does not make you weak, it makes you wise. So in this reflection, as I go to my seat, it's always important for us to acknowledge the God in our life. But God created the solution, which may not come through traditional or ritual church or institutions of faith. But watch this, the institution of faith itself can become a hub where healing can take place. Encourage your church, encourage your institution of faith to partner with hospitals and behavioral health specialists to establish mental health ministries in your church so that you can stop running people away when they come to your place of safety and you're equipped to deal with those things. And if you cannot deal with them, you're equipped to at least be able to refer them to the right location or the right garden so that they can grow again. My brothers and sisters, you are looking at a man of God who is only living because my pain has turned into purpose. If it wasn't for Mentally Mangled, if it wasn't for the opportunity to be able to continue to share my story or continue to build platforms for institutions of faith to be knowledgeable about mental health, then I don't know where I would be. I thank God for the power of life. I thank God for your life. And I am looking forward to what God is going to continue to do not only in your spiritual journey, but your physical, financial, and your mental health as well. Peace and blessings to everyone in the room. It's not a moment, it's a movement.